Hi, welcome back to the channel. Another video today. This one is going to be an upgrade on the rear brakes on my 9.3. So we'll start by running through what tools we're going to be using today. So we have a air gun, obviously with a 17 socket, two brake pipe spanners with a 10 and 11mm on those because I'm going to be using one of them too. Tool to remove the caps on the wheel bolts. Pair of vice grips, 18mm socket with an extension, flat screwdriver, rubber hammer or plastic hammer, whatever you want to call it, 30 Torx on a electric impact gun 3/8 socket. So I shall be changing out the standard calipers on this, which are the twin piston 35mm using a solid disc. Comes as standard. Handbrake works on the shoes on the inside of the brake disc, which is effectively a drum and a disc in one, and they'll be upgraded to items from a SAAB 9.5 Aero, which are ventilated, larger in diameter, use a single piston caliper. So onto the build. Just in the background there, we've got the Porsche 928 S4 automatic. It's been sat on the ramp for 4 years, and we're hoping to get it started this week because this ramp has been tied up for 4 years, so we've not been able to use it, which has been reducing income for the garage. So hopefully going to get that running this week, and I shall do a video on that when that gets going. Right, what I'm doing under here is, first thing I'm checking is the flexible brake lines. I've had these made up at a place in Leyland. They did them while I waited. So from the car, we have the line here, which runs to this bracket here, and then you have the hard line, runs all the way down here, up into the back of the original caliper. Because these are static calipers, they're fixed, they don't move. The ones I'm putting on are called floating calipers, so as you press the brake, they'll move slightly. In and out, so it has to have a flexible line on the back of it. So what I'm going to do is make sure these pipes I've got made up will actually fit in the unions. Fingers crossed they will, and they shall just run in there and go behind the shock absorber there into the back of the new caliper. So for that I'm going to need to get another spanner to go on the back of the union up there. Can't see it, there's a light. There's a hexagonal fixing on the back of the brake pipe there. Now normally on the standard flexi brake pipes from the vehicle to there, they'd be locked in via like a key point, so you'd only need to undo this side. But because these are aftermarket flexi lines I've had fitted, braided lines, they come with a spanner hex, so I'll have to get a spanner on the back of that. I'll be back in a second. Right, I'm going to undo this brake line now. I used a brake pipe spanner to crack it off because I didn't want to round it off, but for speed I'm using an open end spanner just to work off the 11mm. So I'm going to wind this end into there. I've got a bleed nipple cover on the end of this one to stop the fluid coming out, because you can't clamp these lines because they're braided, you'll damage them if you clamp them, to stop fluid coming out. So let's see how this goes. I did fit these brake lines 4 years ago, so they have been off, which does help the fact that they will come undone. Sometimes, if they've been on since the car is new, you end up twisting the line and snapping the brake line. You have to make up a new brake line for it. Middle of July and it's absolutely lashing down with rain. If you can hear it in the background, it's very, very heavy rain and it's cold. Typical weather in the northwest of England. Right, let's get that off. Oh, right, that's out of the clip. Get this wound in quickly before it starts leaking too much fluid anywhere. Okay, it's started. Try and zoom in a bit on that. Always nervous of starting the thread in case it doesn't match up or in case it sticks. This appears to have gone in okay. Right, so that's pretty tight there. I'm just going to hold the spanner at the other end to stop the pipe spinning. Okay, that's that side done, so that's ready now. To set the new caliper at this end. Okay, one side done. Right, continue with the rest of the stuff now. This is the majority of it. Taking the brake line off took a few minutes, but basically now it's wheel off, caliper off, disc off, and you just replace it with the new stuff and hook it up. So I'll crack on. Okay, so to remove the caliper there's two 18mm bolts here. So on the back of this you've got this U-shaped bracket with a tiny little hole in it, and that's the handbrake lever retaining spring, the lever in which I mean the lever inside the drum, which helps return the shoes to the rest position after you've released the lever in the car. So it's important that goes back on. A lot of the time you get corrosion on these springs and they end up breaking, you end up with handbrake shoes grabbing on the inside of the drum, which can cause issues. So just give the caliper a bit of a twist to push the pads back slightly to go over the lip of the disc, and just manoeuvre it out of the way. Just easier said than done when you've got the brake line connected. I'll get there in the end. There we go. So the disc is held on with a T30 screw there. There we go, M6 thread T30. Right, they normally get stuck on the hub with a bit of corrosion, so if I tap it with this rubber hammer, hoping it will release. But it isn't releasing, so inside here with this inspection hole you can get a screwdriver in and you can back off the adjuster for the handbrake manually, and that'll allow the shoe, the disc and the drum to release, because the handbrake shoes will be catching on the inside. So there's a little roller wheel in there with teeth on it, and you just flick it one way to release it. So I'll try it this way. I can never remember which way round it is. It's opposite from left to right of the vehicle because the screw's upside down. Okay, seems to be getting looser, and there we go. Right, it's releasing. So just one more click on that. There we go, and the disc is released. Got a heavy build-up of dust inside of these, so it is a good idea to take them off periodically, sand the faces down and clear them of any dust. So I should be doing that before I put the new discs on. Right, so the adjuster I was talking about is that little thing there, the notches on it. You just get a screwdriver and flick it and it'll wind it in or out. It's just on a basic thread system, and it pushes the shoes closer or inner, closer to the drum, or back them off, in accordance how it needs to be adjusted. So they aren't self-adjusting, these mechanisms. They do need adjusting to keep the handbrake working properly. So I'll just get a piece of sandpaper, a bit of emery cloth, and I will sand the face of the shoes down, check them for inspection, inspect them for cracks and stuff like that, make sure there's no issues with them. Right, just a bit of 80 grit emery cloth, work the surfaces lengthways. In extreme cases where they've had discs and pads on too long and you take them off, they have a build-up of metal on the edges there, rusty steel from the drums, and you do have to use an angle grinder with a flat wheel on it to get rid of them. It's the best way. I think they're a harder compound than regular brake shoes that you find on a car with just brake drums. I think they're a tougher compound, so they take a bit to sand down. Right, they're perfectly fine. See, the colour's changed, so you've got all the old material and dust off there. No cracks or anything in them, so they're still good to use. Because they're only used for the parking brake, they don't get worn out as often as they would on a car with regular shoes and drums. Hub surface has got a little bit of corrosion on it, so I might just give that a bit of a sand so the disc sits flat. You don't want to use anything too harsh on the face of the flanges, because if you change the shape of the flange by gouging into it with grinders and stuff like that, then the disc will not sit true to the hub, and then you'll end up with vibration and irregular wear and stuff like that. So just something gentle like a bit of sandpaper just to get the surface off. Some people say you're supposed to put grease between the flange and the disc, but I've never done that, and I've read it elsewhere that can cause issues with the disc seating properly as well. So I never put any copper grease or aluminium grease on there, just to keep it clean. Nearly there. That clean as well, so the wheel sits nicely. That's the brake cleaner. Right, that was good to take the new disc now. Let's have a bit of a comparison with the original discs and the replacement ones. So first of all, the old ones, solid, they're not ventilated. These are obviously ventilated. The offset of the disc is different on these. See, they're flush with the edge. These are slightly outboard should I say, giving a bit of more of a lip there, so the disc actually sits further out. And the dust shield on the car, where it sits flush and the right diameter for this, it doesn't matter that it's smaller than the new disc, because this is outboard, it doesn't touch them, it doesn't affect them. So the diameter of the discs are different as well. So the original ones are .288 by the look of it. No, 288 mil diameter. The new ones are 300 mil diameter. And I've just noticed, which I wasn't aware of, the inner face of this disc is absolutely shot. But the reason for this is because the pads, these were brand new by the way, when I put them on in 2019, and I've not done a mega amount of mileage, I've just done average mileage in the car. Is that these type of calipers, the tendency of the inner pads sticking, and sometimes the outer ones, no matter how much you grease them and everything like that before you put them in and chamfer the pads down so they're nice and free, they always end up sticking. So the newer calipers are a superior design to this. I mean, many vehicles use these type of things. They're made by ATE, so they're a good brand, obviously. OE equipment. Mercedes used to use them many years ago, twin piston design, and the very older SAABs used to use them as well. They date back to like the 1970s, I think, the general design of them, but they're not as efficient as the larger single piston ones. Right, we'll attempt to mount another disc. That sits in fine without any issues. I'll just get the retaining screw for it. There we go. You don't have to do those mega tight, those screws. You just have to have them just to hold the disc steady, just to stop them moving around. If you're doing them too tight, they end up rounding off, and you end up holding the disc slightly askew because there's all the pressure holding the disc on in one point, so they don't have to be mega tight. So what I'm going to do now is adjust the handbrake shoes back up to where they're just going to be just catching the inside of the drum. So I'll get a torch. Find out where the mechanism is. There it is. Hold the disc steady and just start flicking it upwards. Okay, so that's locked up now. So just give it a tap with a hammer. Catching there, but I think that's a little bit too tight, so I'm just going to back it off one. You can hear that's just making contact with the inside of the drum there. So that's that adjusted up. Next step is to put the caliper on. So here's the replacement caliper. They use the same brake pads on the 9.5s. With the single piston calipers as a Rover 75 and a BMW E46 with a similar brake setup on the back, and I think these have a 41mm piston on them as opposed to the 35, or it might be a 40, but either way they're a lot bigger than the originals. Okay, so I've got a retaining bracket for the handbrake shoe springs. And I've modified this one because on the 9.5s that they came off, they didn't have this bracket, so I've had to alter this. So I'm hoping it's going to fit on, because I've not tested it on the car yet, but I'm going to give it a go. Right, I've just encountered an issue. The backing plate needs to be altered around here to take the larger size of the caliper carrier, so I shall do that. I'll be back with you in a second. Right, I'm just going to film this crude process. All I'm doing is using some hand metal shears. I've marked on with crayon on the back of each of these where I need to cut, so I'm just going to cut them and see if that does the trick. I'm hoping it will do. This metal's pretty crusty, so it shouldn't give up too much of a fight. There's one side done. There's no right or wrong way to do this, it's just sort of trial and error and sort of learning as going along. So it's the first conversion I've done on one of these, so I wasn't aware of this issue until just now. Old man noises. Oh god. Come on. Last bit. There we go. Oh, right. God, that's a rough job, but it's only a dust shield. Right, let's see if this has done the trick or not. New caliper. Get it in position. There we go, that's given us the clearance we needed. So I shall refit the disc and attempt again to fit the caliper. Okay, attempt number 2 to putting the caliper on. So where I've trimmed it, I've put a bit of black hammerite paint on, which is a anti-rust protection paint to stop the edges going corroded any further. So I shall go around the other side and try and put it on again now. Right, that's gone on okay there. That seems to have gone on there alright. Let's see if we can get this retaining spring on for the handbrake mechanism. That's gone on okay as well. Right. We're in there. The calipers on, make sure it all lines up. That's pretty good. Okay. Right, so the next step will be to get the hydraulic brake line connected. Right, this is the last stage of it, so I'm going to attempt to wind this in here now. So that's on there. Get it started gently in there. I'm begging it to start, I'm willing it to. I think it has started. Just to be sure though, there we go, I'll give it a wriggle. Right, I think that's started, so open-ended 11mm spanner, just very carefully wind it in. If you feel any resistance when winding in brake pipes, don't keep going because you're more than likely to strip the thread on them because they're a very fine thread, and then you'll have to re-tap it. Worst case scenario, put a helicoil in or make up a new brake line, so just always be patient with stuff like this. You can see the fluid coming out now. So that means the fluid's travelled down the line from the line on the car. Which used to be a hard line, now it's a flexi line. So there we go, that's met up there, that's tight. Okay. Wipe the residue off. Quite neat. So this line is slightly thicker than the original, so it won't go in the retaining clips of the hard line, so I'll just have to place it strategically in areas where it's not rubbing on anything basically, and it can still move around enough for the movement for the brake line, brake caliper. So I shall do that. Next step is bleeding this one up. Okay, now it's time to bleed it, so I've loosened the reservoir cap, loosen this bleed nipple, and I shall just start pumping it. Okay, I'll tighten the bleed nipple, pump it, see if the pedal goes firm. If it does, I'm going to be happy at that. Okay, the pedal's gone firm, but the piston has now come out, so the pads have met the disc. So I'll undo it one more time, make sure there's no air in there. I haven't got an assistant today, so I'm just doing it on my own. So I've done many times, I've not had issues doing it on my own. Okay, so the pedal's held down now using a pry bar. I'll release it, pump it, and hopefully be rock hard. It feels good. Just a quick one whilst I'm filming this, if anybody's interested in buying a project car, 928 S4, complete running vehicle, in need of some work, totally original, no real rot on it anywhere, it's got a bit of alloy corrosion on the wings, back arches and everything are good on it, the interior is in fair condition, it's got leather in this one, all the usual stuff with these, you know, fully loaded, chip computer and everything. Just message me if anybody's interested in it. Okay, thank you. See you next time. Okay, thanks for watching. That's it from this video. Again, with most of my videos where I've got two things to do, like in pairs, I'll not film the other side. So you've seen one side how it's done, and that is exactly how I do it on the other side. So not only do these look better, they should work better as well, and they're easier to maintain. So I'll let you know in a later video how we get on with the upgrade. It's going to take a couple of weeks for these to bed in. Hopefully they should be stronger than the previous ones. So I will join you next time.